We are going to transition to Michelle Winter's presentation. So if teachers, you can start to turn your videos back on. And yes, thanks again to the Lunch and Learn presenters. I'll see many of you soon on another Zoom, I'm sure. Yeah, Michelle, I'm excited to see what you have to share.
Well, hello. I am the affect to all this amazing knowledge. I'm going to be talking about forest bathing. But before we get started, for this session, you're going to need a natural object that you can hold in your hand and a timer. You can use your phone. Okay, so I'll give you a few moments to find a natural object that you can hold in your hand and a timer. And this is the part where we have the Jeopardy music. Da, 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 da. Oh, some good natural objects already, I see. Oh, lovely, yes. I figure that most people are collectors of rocks and shells or feathers, and so there's got to be something, but even a stick would be fine. And a timer. Oh, lovely. Oh, an antler. Yes. Anything at all that is a natural object that you can hold in your hand and a timer. Okay. Are we mostly ready? Okay. So for now, you can set aside your natural object. We'll be getting to that a little bit later. And we'll get started. Is that okay, Ryan? Okay. So my name is Michelle Winter. I taught public school in a past life, and I loved it so, so much. But now I'm an expressive arts practitioner and a certified forest therapy guide. What a delicious week this has been. The first week of spring, right? Where I live, it's been pouring big, juicy raindrops, alternating with sun that is truly warm. So that rain has just been spring rain, juicy and delicious. It's funny, isn't it, how we label a point in time as the first day of spring. This is when spring begins. And I know it's a measure of the point at which day and night are roughly equal. I get that. But if you're a nature watcher, you know that the poetry of seasons and cycles are so fluid, it's hard to capture a moment of unfolding. Some things are still very much in hibernation and won't be waking up or breaking through for quite a while yet. And others are stretching and pushing and expanding, and they're really active and we can't see it. And others are early risers, and they've made their presence known. So I'm going to offer you some invitations. These are not assignments. You can't do this wrong. They're invitations. When someone invites you to something, you get to decide how you want to engage in the invitation. Would you like to engage as stated, or is there something that is more interesting or comfortable for you about tweaking the invitation? Choosing to do something slightly different is not rude. It's listening to yourself and using that information to make a choice that allows you to participate in your own way. Okay? So, I'm going to invite you to set your timer for 2 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to step outside for 2 minutes. This is going to feel long, so let yourself linger there, okay? The invitation is to just be there. Just be outside for 2 minutes, okay? So I'm setting my timer. You've set yours. And you can leave everything as it is. You can leave your camera on. We're coming back. We're going to step outside, and then we'll meet back here in 2 minutes. Ready? Go. Welcome back. I see you trickling in. Welcome back. Yes. Okay. As we make our way back, I have one question for you. What are you noticing? You can unmute and just popcorn answer, or you can pop it in the chat there. What are you noticing? The sound of light rain from Sam. It's raining from Janice. Thank you. From Brian, birds are chirping. Caroline, trees swaying in the wind. Thank you. Ryan, I could only see 2 trees, but noticed bright yellow daffodils. Joyce, plants returning. Freddie, a birch tree that was recently trimmed is weeping. Yep. Brian, the rolling sound of traffic on the highway. Nicole, I'm house sitting for someone and there are landscapers here, so I heard loud lawnmowers. Thank you. Danae, cars honking and alarms. Any others? Thank you so much. So, what is forest bathing and how does it fit into our conversations today? Forest bathing is about sensory engagement in a natural setting. It isn't hiking. We aren't trying to get anywhere. It's called forest bathing because it's complete immersion in all that the forest or other natural space has to offer. Layers of sounds, noticing the rhythm and melody of a place, including human sounds, like some of you noticed cars and lawnmowers. At this moment, everything that we hear and see belongs here, and noticing those things is important. Layers of smells that move on the wind, allowing ourselves to be surrounded, immersed, and bathed in nature. Forest bathing is located between scientific exploration on one hand and playing on the other. There are elements of mindfulness, but it is more accurately described as bodyfulness. It's about cultivating curiosity and wonder and an unfolding sense of self-awareness, locating ourselves in space, in a place, and falling in love with nature, and thereby finding our own way to care for it. American naturalist John Burroughs said, "Knowledge without love will not stick. But if love comes first, knowledge is sure to follow." Forest bathing is about falling in love with our local, natural places. So this session is titled Forest Bathing and Nature as Resiliency. Resiliency is often a word associated with trauma. But my autistic son needs exercises in developing resiliency, and my neurotypical children benefit from those same practices. So in this 30-minute session, I'm going to assume some familiarity with vocabulary around trauma, but it isn't necessary because we're going to focus on nature practices that are useful for anyone. So when we start a forest bathing walk, which we also call nature immersion, we always start with information that might be used later by our imaginations. Chronic stress can sometimes hijack the imagination. Imagination that is stuck in the past, we call post-traumatic stress, which may or may not rise to the level of a disorder, but post-traumatic stress nonetheless. The imagination stuck in the future is called anxiety. What we want to do is give people opportunities to use their imaginal sense in a healthy way, to basically return the control over their imaginations to themselves. It's agency. We want to give them agency. So we start our walks with some information about the people who came before us. Just enough information to perhaps wonder about them later. Where I live and guide, I have benefited from the land and knowledge of the Nehalem peoples. They are still alive and living in the North Oregon coast, and there's a lot of information available that is connecting and honoring. Okay, so I might pull from any of that information. I also might give information about the land itself. This area is part of the Tillamook burn, which is a series of 4 cataclysmic burns that started in the 1930s. And then every few years, another burn. So they burned the seedlings and then burned the seedlings and then burned the seedlings. So that at the end of the 4th burn, there was nothing left to come back. Which then made this the site of the Tillamook Burn Rehabilitation Project, where starting in the 1970s, people taxed themselves to pay for a forest, and they came out as part of their school, their scout group, their church group, their Rotary organization, or just driving to the beach, and they would stop and plant trees any day of the week for 25 years. It shaped this place. So these are all interesting tidbits of information that connect us to the space and give us something to wonder about later. And then we ask the most important question: what are you noticing? The form of the question is important. We're just about to get started, and I haven't given any instructions yet, right? So the question stated in this way moves our awareness around. We're not sure what we're supposed to be noticing. What am I noticing? And so we have to scan outside of ourselves, and we have to scan inside of ourselves. It requires us to scan and make choices. There's no right answer to this question, and that's one of the things that makes it interesting. All answers, including wordless answers, are accepted. So when somebody says, "I'm noticing the wind," everybody else goes, I'm noticing the wind too. And when someone says, "I notice that I feel happy being here," others might think, "Oh, I didn't know we could think about feelings. What am I feeling? I'm happy to be here too." Or I'm nervous. When someone says, "I'm noticing my foot hurts," then suddenly everyone will do a quick body scan to see if something in them hurts, right? And in that way, all answers help the group to move their awarenesses inside and outside. And this is an important skill for resiliency. Trauma and chronic stress both cause us to separate from others and from ourselves. We decapitate ourselves, right? We separate, dissociate from our bodies. We fragment in our thinking. We compartmentalize. And one of the things we find is that bodies stuck in a stress response use data only from the inside. Our bodies assume that outside is dangerous, so we don't collect data from outside. So what we're trying to do is gently encourage the collecting of data from our physical space and then checking in with data from our interior space so that we can retrain ourselves to do what our bodies were intended to do. So one of the ways that we can track this, we see this in heart rate variability. Someone who is not gathering data from their outside space tends to have a regular rhythm, right? That is most probably like this. Tuck, 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 right? And that heartbeat is causing anxiety in you. Tuck, 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 tuck. It's kind of fast and it's very regular. When do we experience that? We experience that when we're supposed to be alert because there's danger. A non-stressed body might walk into an unfamiliar woods and feel anxiety. I don't know this place. Tuck, 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 tuck. Oh, listen to the water. Oh, that feels lovely. Tuck, 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 tuck. There's an interesting bug. Tuck, 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 right? That heart rate variability is normal. And that is what we want to capture for resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, right? If we're only gathering data from inside and we're not gathering data from outside, we have less of an ability to bounce back. Outside is always scary. So next, we spend some time using our senses in a very directed way. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions now, and I would love to invite you to engage, but you do not need to share your answers. Okay, this is just for you. What sound can you hear right now that is furthest away from you? What sound is closest to your body? Of all the sounds that you're hearing right now, which one is the most pleasing to you? You belong right where you are. So would you perhaps like to add your own sound to your space in this moment? So you see, we swing the sensory directives gently but wildly. We want to help participants to be fully in their bodies, but also moving continuously so that they have our help to stay present. Do you see how the questions about sounds near and far help them to put effort into using the sense of hearing? But then the question about which sound is most pleasing requires them to move their awareness from sound to inside, to next sound, to inside, to next sound, to inside. And then the invitation to join the chorus of sounds is just that, an invitation. Some will take it, some won't, and that's okay. There will be lots of other invitations that might be easier to accept, that will help them to feel like they belong to nature and nature belongs to them. In addition to the usual 5 senses, we include a few more. We ask questions that invite imagination, the imaginal sense. We ask questions that ask participants to melt into nature or to define their own edges. Where is the boundary of me? Usually we put those together. So here's one that a friend of mine uses with younger children. She asks young children on snowy days to fall into a snowdrift by saying, I wonder what it feels like to let the snow hug you for 5 minutes. She says the kids are always completely silent for that entire 5 minutes while they concentrate on that feeling. And then they have lots and lots to say when she asks them to stand up, shake it off, and tell her what they're noticing. On non-snowy wintry outings, perhaps, or non-winter outings, perhaps they could fall into a pile of leaves or a pile of grass clippings. Oh, that might smell delicious. That would be a whole nother way of being present to the earth. Perhaps they might wonder what it feels like to be hugged by the wind. So this developing sense of connection and belonging is the beginning of affection, right? Affection for the natural world. And what you love, you want to care for. We're going to try another thing for 1 minute if you want to set your timer. We can do this outside, or if you have a house plant and you're cold, you could stay inside. Outside is so nice right now, even though it's raining. Anyways, I'm not going to try to make you do what I want you to do. Anyways, what we're going to do is spend 1 minute breathing with a tree. And this is what I mean by that. What you have to offer freely, because you have an abundance of it, is carbon dioxide. And what the plant has to offer freely, because it has an abundance of it, is oxygen. There is a mutuality there. If you go to a tree or a plant and you offer it what you have so much of, your carbon dioxide, and then breathe in what it's offering you, and then think about the mutuality of that. Yes, I just invite you to go breathe with the tree for 1 minute. Begin. Welcome back. Thank you for trying that out. I would love to hear what you're noticing. You can say it out loud or you can pop it in the chat. What are you noticing?
I'm in the office and I've noticed that there is a plant that I haven't noticed before and it's like very dry. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna water this plant.
Yay! Thank you.
I noticed that my thoughts were more of a thankfulness, thanking the plant and feeling like the plant was thanking me, which is kind of strange, but.
Thank you. Caroline says, breathing more intentionally and deeply. Thank you. Cindy says, pleasant feeling with a baby Douglas fir that has tender green new growth. Thank you. So I would normally allow more space, but I can see my time quickly ticking away. And Ryan, I want to be very honoring to your time schedule. So I had hoped to use that natural object that you could hold in your hand for an interoception exercise, but perhaps we need to be done.
So my presentation is the one that's next and I can adapt. So if you'd like to do that, that's fine with me.
Then let's try it, if that's okay. We'll keep it short. So find your object that you, your natural object, and hold it in your hand. And so I'd like to actually invite you to stand up if you're able. It's an invitation, so of course you don't have to do this, but I think you can feel it better if you stand up. Good. So I want you to notice that you have an object in one hand and that you do not have an object in the other. What does it feel like in the hand that is holding something to be holding something from the inside? What does it feel like on your skin to hold that object? Do you notice that you are using muscles in your hand to hold that object? Are you using muscles in your wrist as well? I wonder how far the use of your muscles extends. Are you using muscles in your forearm? Muscles in your shoulder? Is the object in your hand affecting the muscles in your neck? What about the muscles in your core around your belly? Go ahead and put your object down and keep your hand up. Are you noticing the absence of the thing in your hand? What does your skin feel like to you in the absence of the thing in your hand? What are you noticing? You can come back to the group. What did you notice inside your body? Now, this could be physiologically, biologically in your body, or it might be a feeling.
I was holding something that was kind of heavy. So but like, as you were starting to say about the, like, which muscles, like I already was feeling that my shoulder was also holding the object.
Yes, and if I were doing this on a forest therapy walk, a forest bathing walk, I would have you maybe hold it out in front of you and notice those muscles and hold it above you. And we would do more with those things. But I wanted you to get a taste for an activity that helps us to notice the boundaries of ourselves and what might be happening inside of us. We don't usually think about our muscles unless they hurt, but we can feel them if we think about it. Ooh, I love that, Freddie. I could feel the antler starting to absorb the warmth from my hand. So this is a really important thing, and then I'll let you guys go. When I work with youth, sometimes I have them draw their breath. And after a while, they start noticing that when the breath comes inside, it's cold. And then within them, it warms. And when it comes out, it's warm. And that means that just by existing, I'm changing the world. Just by existing, I have an impact on air. It comes in cold, something happens inside of me, it goes out warm. By holding an object and noticing that it's absorbing your warmth, you have an impact on the world. And that can be very profound and perspective changing for a youth, a teenager in pain who thinks that they don't matter, right? So with that, I'm going to leave you. I don't want to take up any more time. I know that there is a coupon in your packet if you'd like to try a forest bathing walk. Well, everything that we did is from phase 1. So a forest bathing walk is in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the threshold of connection. It's being there, sensory awareness. Phase 2 is about play and discovery. And phase 3 is about incorporating what we learned and then going back into the world. So I'm so glad that you guys are here and that you're connecting with the earth and each other. Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us. We tried to schedule kind of like ebbs and flows in the day, and it's nice to, think in such a different way. And yeah, it really brings us back to the importance of going outside, for many ages of people, but also, like you said, for building resilience or resiliency, and thinking back to like just different traumas and how, our heart rate is impacted. So I was jotting down a lot of notes. But yes, and thank you so much for the coupon. So so Michelle was nice enough to allow each of you to get $5 off a forest therapy walk. You do have to sign up by the end of this month. You don't have to do the walk by the end of this month, but if you sign up by March 31st, you'll get $5 off. And that's something that she does regularly on her own. I think you're doing some virtual ones, and then depending on COVID, there might be in-person ones later. But
yeah, they're all the public walks are virtual right now. Private walks are in person if people want them. But just because it's virtual doesn't mean it's less. I always, once a month, just to keep myself fresh, I go on as a participant a forest bathing walk, and I prefer the remote ones, the virtual ones, because I get to choose my own wild space, and I feel like I have more privacy, and I just hear the guide in my back pocket through my phone on speakerphone, and so that's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
And I'm just going to share, let me just make sure I have it up. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let's see. So this is her website. So if you go to that link, she has this forest therapy walk, and so it's normally 35. It'd be 30 for you, but so you can sign up, and she has some already scheduled coming up, so you can sign up for one ahead. But yeah, I participated in forest therapy walks in New York and Vermont, and really enjoyed it. One was in the middle of winter, and literally the coldest day it had been, it was like just over 0 degrees, and I still really enjoyed it. And I don't love winter. So I feel like it really kind of brings you, like she said, brings you into yourself, and also like very mindfully aware of what's around you. So it's a very interesting experience that I want to share with all of you if you haven't done forest bathing or forest therapy, but also something you could start to incorporate with some of your students in some interesting ways. So